I used to come to their house because it was quiet. That's all it was supposed to be, a place to study. My friend's house had better light, fewer interruptions, and his sister usually kept to herself. Usually. That afternoon, he wasn't home. He'd texted that he'd be late, told me to let myself in. The front door was unlocked, same as always. I remember the smell of ground coffee and detergent, the kind of clean that only people who live alone keep up. The kind that says, I have my routines. Her name's Lena. Mid-40s, literature teacher, always wearing something soft-looking, knits, linen. That day it was a light gray cardigan. She was sitting at the kitchen table, reading with her glasses half down her nose. "Oh," she said when she saw me. "He's not back yet." "I know. He told me to start without him." It became routine after that. Thursdays, mostly. My friend was buried in his internship, and Lena, she never seemed to mind me taking up space at her table. She'd move her papers aside when I arrived, pour coffee without asking, and sometimes slide a plate of something toward me. Bread, fruit, or leftovers she'd made too much of. That afternoon, it was raining. The kind of steady, quiet rain that feels like it might never stop. She was by the window when I came in, watching it bead on the glass. "You're early," she said, smiling without turning around. "Bus was fast today." She nodded. "Eyes still on the rain. You used to complain about that bus. You remember that?" "I remember most things," she said. "I think that's what makes it hard sometimes." I didn't ask what she meant, though I wanted to. Instead, I unpacked my books, pretending to read while her words settled somewhere inside me. After a while, she joined me at the table with 2 mugs of tea. "Coffee's no good this late," she said. "Tea's fine." She blew gently over her cup, and I watched the steam curl past her face. There was something unguarded about her then. No teacher tone, no practiced distance. Just someone who'd been living quietly for too long. "My ex used to hate the rain," she said suddenly. Said it made the house feel smaller. I always thought it made everything softer. It was the first time she'd mentioned him. The word ex hung there, careful and deliberate. "I like the rain," I said. "It makes people stay." She looked at me, really looked, and something passed between us that didn't need explaining. The kind of look that makes you aware of every sound in the room. The clock, the soft tapping of water on the sill, the fact that neither of us looked away first. She smiled, but it was a small, sad smile. "You should be careful saying things like that." "Why?" "Because sometimes people believe them." I laughed under my breath, though it wasn't funny. "Do you?" Her gaze flicked to the window. "Sometimes." Silence again. But this one wasn't comfortable. It was the kind that pressed against the ribs. I went back to reading, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting toward her hands, the way she cupped the mug, thumbs tracing the rim. Her nails were short, unpolished. Real. At one point she leaned closer, pointing at a line in my notes. "You spelled that wrong." "Oh, right." Our heads nearly touched. I could smell her, rain, soap, and something faintly sweet, like orange peel. She didn't move right away. Neither did I. Then she stood, as if remembering herself, and went to refill her tea. When she came back, she set a folded napkin beside me. "For the spill," she said. But there was no spill. I didn't ask. Later, when I packed up to leave, she followed me to the door. "Next Thursday?" "Yeah." She hesitated, then reached up, brushed something invisible off my shoulder. "You've got a bit of dust," she murmured. Her fingers lingered for half a second too long. And that was all. Just that touch. But for the rest of the night, it stayed with me. A small, meaningless gesture that somehow wasn't meaningless at all. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. It was the first Thursday I almost didn't go. Classes had run late, and I told myself she probably wouldn't notice. Maybe she'd forgotten, or maybe it was just a habit for me now, showing up at her door like someone who belonged there. Still, I went. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy. Her house looked the same, one porch light, half dim. I could see her through the window, moving around the kitchen. When she opened the door, she said, "I thought you weren't coming." I almost didn't. Something in her expression softened, then reset. Well, she said, stepping aside. You're here now. The table was cleared tonight. No papers, no books, just 2 mugs, already waiting. Coffee this late? I asked. She smiled faintly. It felt wrong not to. We sat facing each other, not talking much. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the distant tick of a clock in another room. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down at the screen, thumb hovering. A small exhale. Your brother? I asked. She shook her head. No, just someone I don't need to answer right now. I nodded, but I saw something flicker across her face. Hesitation, maybe guilt. Whatever it was, it made me realize how little I actually knew about her life. What she did when I wasn't here. Who she was when I wasn't looking. You okay? I asked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Don't do that. Do what? Sound concerned. I laughed softly. Sorry. She looked away. You remind me of him sometimes. Your brother? No, she said quickly. Your father. It took me a moment to answer. That's strange. I mean it kindly. She stirred her coffee, though she hadn't added anything. You have the same way of thinking before you speak. He used to do that. Pause, like he wanted the words to come out right. I looked down at my hands. You really did know him better than I did. I doubt that. Her voice was quiet, but it hit something sharp inside me. The air shifted. She reached for her mug, and our fingers brushed again. Only this time, she didn't pull away. Not immediately. Lena, I started, but the rest of the sentence didn't come. She looked up at me, really looked. For a second, it felt like the room narrowed down to that space between us. Her breath close enough to feel, her eyes steady and uncertain at once. Then, from the hallway, footsteps. Her brother's voice. Hey, you here already? We both flinched back. Her chair scraped against the tile. I dropped my pen. It rolled under the table. She stood first, voice too even. In here. When he walked in, everything felt normal again, like it had all been imagined. She smiled at him, handed him his mug. I gathered my books, hands a little unsteady. He didn't notice anything. Why would he? When I turned to leave, she caught my sleeve, just lightly, like she was fixing something that wasn't there. Next week, she said quietly. I nodded. Yeah. But as I walked out into the damp night, I realized I wasn't sure who was keeping who coming back anymore. And if I'd stayed 1 second longer, I think we both would have found out. I didn't go for 2 weeks. I told myself it was because of exams, work shifts, exhaustion, all the usual excuses. But every time Thursday came around, I caught myself watching the clock, imagining her at that same kitchen table, the soft sound of her spoon against a mug. When I finally did go back, it was late afternoon. The sky was gray again, always gray when I saw her. She opened the door before I could knock twice. You remember where I live after all. I didn't forget. Her smile didn't quite land. I wasn't sure. We didn't start with coffee this time. We walked. She said she needed air. I said I didn't mind. The park near her house was mostly empty. Just a few kids kicking a ball, a couple sitting too close on a bench. The kind of ordinary day that makes everything you're holding in feel louder. You disappeared, she said finally. I didn't mean to. People don't mean to. They just fade. I looked at her, wind moving strands of hair across her face, the fine lines near her eyes that deepened when she frowned. You thought I was fading? She exhaled softly. I thought I was foolish for expecting you not to. We stopped by the bench near the small pond. She sat. I stayed standing. For a moment, I wanted to tell her the truth, that it wasn't disinterest keeping me away. It was the opposite. I don't know what we're doing, I said instead. Her gaze stayed on the water. Neither do I. I sat down then, close enough to feel the heat of her shoulder through the air. We didn't touch, but it felt like we might. I kept thinking, she said, voice low, about that day. When he walked in. I nodded. So did I. And I hesitated. I keep replaying what didn't happen. She gave a faint, almost broken laugh. That's the worst kind of memory. Silence again. Then, quietly. You know, when I was your age, I thought attraction was simple. You felt something, you said it, and it either became something or it didn't. But now, she trailed off, shaking her head. Now it's complicated. Everything is measured. What you can lose, what you can't say, who you shouldn't hurt. Do you think we're hurting anyone? She looked at me then, eyes sharp, shining. Don't ask me that. Why not? Because if I answer, it'll sound like permission. Something in her voice cracked a little, the restraint finally showing its edges. I wanted to tell her I wasn't trying to make this harder, that I just wanted to understand why she looked at me the way she did, and then pretended she hadn't. Instead, I said, I miss Thursdays. Her hand twitched, just barely, between us. She looked down at it like she didn't trust it anymore. Don't, she whispered. Don't what? Make this real. The wind moved between us, cold and soft. I leaned back, unsure whether to laugh or apologize. It already is. She didn't answer, just sat there, watching the ripples spread across the pond. When she finally stood, she said, You should go before it rains again. I did. But before I turned away, I looked at her one last time, her hands clenched at her sides, her eyes fixed somewhere that wasn't me. And I knew she was asking the same question I couldn't say out loud. What are we doing? The next Thursday, I went by her house again. I didn't plan to, my feet just carried me there after work, the way a habit outlives the reason it began. But when I got there, the lights were off. No faint hum of the kettle, no glow from the kitchen. Just the quiet outline of a house that didn't expect anyone. I waited on the porch for a while, not sure if I was hoping she'd return or that she wouldn't. A car passed, then another. The porch light flickered once and went out completely. I turned to leave, but then I saw it. A note wedged between the door and the frame. Folded, not sealed. My name on it. Taking a short break from teaching. Visiting my sister for a few weeks. Don't worry about the books. Take care of yourself. No, Lena. No signature. Just that. Days blurred after that. I went to class, to work, to bed, but the air around everything felt thinner, like I was living inside a space that used to mean something. I kept checking my phone anyway. Nothing. Then one afternoon, I saw her brother on campus, my friend. He was sitting on the steps, scrolling his phone. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. Your sister okay? He looked up. Yeah. What? I heard she went away. Oh, yeah, just needed some time off. Family stuff, I guess. He shrugged. She's been quieter lately. I nodded, pretending it didn't mean anything. Pretending I didn't already know. Did you two talk much? He asked suddenly. The question made me freeze. Sometimes. He smiled faintly. She said you were good company. That you reminded her of Dad. I didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know if it was supposed to comfort me or cut deeper. Yeah, I said finally. He was a good man. He nodded and went back to his phone, conversation over. But the world didn't feel right after that. That night, I opened her last message. Next time, I'll make enough for two. I stared at it until the words blurred. I typed something, just are you okay? Then erased it. Typed again. I miss Thursdays. Erased that too. I didn't send anything. Instead, I went to the old park we'd walked through. Sat on the same bench. Watched the pond move with the wind. It was quieter than I remembered. The bench across from me was empty, but I kept catching myself glancing at it, as if she might still be there. Cardigan sleeves pulled over her hands, watching the rain that wasn't falling. Maybe she was gone for good. Maybe just long enough for me to understand what it meant to miss someone who was never mine to begin with. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. She came back in early spring. I didn't know until I saw her at the grocery store, near the coffee aisle, holding a bag of the same brand she used to make. Her hair was tied up, her face a little paler. But she looked lighter, somehow. I almost didn't say her name. Almost walked past. But she saw me first. Oh, she said softly, like the word itself hurt. Hi. Hey. We stood there, both holding nothing we meant to buy. The hum of refrigerators filled the silence. I heard you were away, I said. I was. My sister needed help. A pause. Or maybe I did. She smiled, but it wavered. The kind of smile people use when they've practiced letting go. Coffee's still your thing, I see. Old habits, she said. Then quieter. You stopped coming by. I swallowed. You stopped being there. Her eyes flicked down. Fair. We stood like that for a while. Not strangers, not what we were before. Something in between. Would you? She started, then stopped. Never mind. No, say it. Would you help me carry this? She said, lifting the coffee bag. It's silly, but I don't like walking alone anymore. Her house looked the same. Maybe smaller. There were flowers near the window now. Tulips, or something trying to be. She unlocked the door, stepped inside first. The air smelled faintly of lemon and something warm, like baked bread. Tea or coffee? She asked. I smiled. You already know. She nodded, moving with the same careful rhythm as before. The kettle hissed, the clock ticked. Every sound between us was the ghost of some older silence. When she set the mug in front of me, her hands lingered on the table. I didn't mean to disappear, she said. I thought distance would make it easier. Did it? She looked at me, then shook her head. No, it just made it quieter. I didn't answer right away. The warmth from the mug pressed against my palms, grounding me. I thought maybe you regretted it, I said finally. She exhaled slowly. What is it? All of it. Her lips parted, then closed again. Regret, she said after a while, is too tidy a word. I think about what would have happened if we hadn't stopped ourselves. But I don't know if that's regret or relief. We both laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because we didn't know what else to do. Then she reached across the table, resting her hand over mine. Just that. No trembling, no hesitation this time. I don't know what this is, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I know I care. That's all I have the courage to admit. I turned my hand over, fingers brushing hers. That's enough. The clock ticked. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. We sat there, two people who had spent months trying not to say something, finally saying it without words. When she looked up again, there was no tension left in her face. Just tired honesty. Okay, she said quietly. And for once, it didn't feel like an ending. Just something real enough to stop pretending it wasn't there. Spring turned into summer without us noticing. She went back to teaching part-time. I finished my degree, started working at a nearby firm. Thursdays stopped being sacred, but somehow they stayed ours, even when we didn't name them that way anymore. Sometimes I'd stop by after work, bringing her coffee just the way she used to make it. Black, 2 spoons of sugar on the side. She'd pretend to scold me. You still can't drink it without sweetening the bitterness first? But she'd smile when she said it. We didn't talk about the months we'd missed, or the nights we both pretended not to think about each other. Some things were better left where they'd burned out quietly. One evening, near dusk, we walked to the same park as before. The bench was still there, though the paint had started to peel. The pond looked smaller. The world, somehow gentler. She sat first. I stood for a while, then joined her. The air smelled like grass and rain. You ever think about that day? I asked. She tilted her head. Which one? The one where you told me not to make it real. Her eyes softened. I was wrong. I looked at her. Really looked. The fine lines, the steadiness, the quiet warmth that had always been there, waiting to be seen. I know, I said. She smiled, not an apology, but in peace. We didn't hold hands. Didn't need to. Just sat there as the sky shifted color, blue to gold to gray. Somewhere behind us, kids laughed. A dog barked. Life went on, like it always does. She leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees. You know, she said, I used to think love had to look a certain way. Promises, plans, everything loud enough to prove it existed. And now, she said, glancing at me, I think it's this. Showing up. Still choosing to stay, even when it's quieter than you expected. I nodded. You make it sound easy. It isn't, she said, smiling faintly. That's what makes it real. We sat there until the first streetlight flickered on. Then she stood, brushing off her coat. Tea or coffee? She asked, half teasing. Coffee, I said. Still black. Still sweet. Always. Her laugh, small, tired, familiar, echoed softly as we walked home side by side, not touching, but close enough that we didn't have to. Later that night, as I washed my cup in her sink, I noticed the old clock on the counter. 8:47 p.m. The same hour it had been the first night I stayed too long. She caught me looking. Still keeping time? Trying to. She smiled. Good. Someone should. For a moment, I thought about every pause, every silence, every almost. Then I reached over and turned the clock a few minutes ahead. Why'd you do that? She asked. So we don't lose it again, I said. She just nodded, like she understood. And maybe she did. Some stories don't end. They just settle. Into a routine. Into two mugs on the same table. Into a quiet that finally feels earned. And this one, ours, stayed. She nodded, turned a page, then after a pause, said, There's coffee if you want. It's still warm. That's how it always starts, isn't it? Not with anything bold. Just a cup left waiting for someone else. I set my bag down, poured coffee into one of her heavy mugs. She watched for a second, not staring, just a flicker of interest, like she was checking if I still took it black. I did. She remembered. Long day, she asked. Classes, I said. And work after. Just tired. She smiled softly. That never goes away, by the way. Her tone made me look up. It wasn't advice, just recognition. The kind that makes you feel seen and a little uneasy at the same time. I sat down at the far end of the table and opened my notes. She went back to her book. The clock ticked loud in the silence. At some point, I noticed I hadn't written anything in 10 minutes. I kept thinking about how she turned the page, slow, deliberate. I wondered if that's how she was in everything. Never rushing, never apologizing for silence. She looked up once. You're quiet today. I'm always quiet. Not like this. She said it lightly, but it landed heavy. I didn't know what to say, so I smiled, or something that felt like it. She smiled back, but her eyes stayed thoughtful, searching. A gust of wind came through the open window. The corner of my paper lifted, and she reached out instinctively to hold it down. Her fingers brushed mine, brief, cold from her coffee mug. Neither of us moved for a heartbeat too long. She was the one who pulled away first, tucking her hand under her sleeve. Sorry. It's okay. And then, quieter. You should focus. He'll be back soon. I nodded, but my pen still didn't move. I just kept tracing the rim of the mug with my thumb, feeling where the glaze had chipped. When she stood, her chair scraped softly against the floor. If you get hungry, there's soup in the fridge. Thanks, I said. She hesitated in the doorway. You've grown up, you know. The words shouldn't have meant much, but something in the way she said them, like she'd just realized it, made my stomach tighten. After she left, the room felt too large. I sat there staring at my phone. There were a few unsent texts in my drafts, half-written things to people I didn't talk to anymore. Then her name lit up the screen. Lena. I forgot to ask, do you still take it black? I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Mia? Why? The typing dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Finally, Lena. Next time, I'll make enough for two. I don't know why, but I couldn't focus on my notes after that. The clock ticked on, louder than before. And I stayed there, waiting for a door to open that didn't.